Hello everyone and welcome to Cherries Red Army and this latest video. Please do make sure you like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, because the World Cup is upon us and Bournemouth are currently sitting 14th on 16 points. What an opportunity to review the main squad and have a look at that tier list we did before the international break. To help me, I have Jon Spark, someone who's just done a video on Marcelo Bielsa and Gary O'Neill. Who gets the AFC Bournemouth job? We will find out. Make sure you check that out after this video. Jon, how are you?
Yeah, doing well, thank you. Fresh from the gym, so feeling very ready and energized to go through the squad. And yes, thank you for those that have that watched and commented on my most recent video. It's generated some decent discussion, I think, and it's really not as clear cut as a lot of people I think have decided that it is. But we'll wait and see what the actual management decide come whenever the announcement is.
Someone mentioned in that video is journalist Dan Davis, who's also done his own player ratings for Dorset Live. You can check that out. There'll be a link in the description below. Dan, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me on. Yeah, I'm really good. I haven't been to the gym this evening, so I am the opposite of Jon. I'm sluggish and I'm tired. But yeah, thanks very much for having me on. I've been looking forward to this all of today. So yeah, ready to get cracking.
So what are we going to do then? Well, as I said, we did a tier list, me and Jon, at that international break, and we rated the main squad, how they were doing up to that point. And we're going to pretty much review that. We are not going to judge some of these players because they've either not played enough Premier League minutes or they've not played 90 minutes. And players that we won't be discussing will be James Hill, David Brooks, Joe Rothwell, Jamal Lowe, Siriki Dembele, Junior Stanislas and Emiliano Marcondes. However, what I would like to do is give you an opportunity, Dan or Jon, both of you actually, Dan, to talk about any of those players, just to give them a mention, because some of them have had some good performances in the EFL Cup.
Yeah, I mean, the Cup performance against Everton really did show that actually there is a decent amount of depth to the squad. And there's actually a few players that are unfortunate not to be getting in the squad. So, case in point, I think Marcondes was excellent. And then he misses out on the squad entirely. It's then again, you know, it's harsh. Gary O'Neill said it himself, but there's a lot of players that aren't getting maybe the minutes they deserve, and that's something I've written about. That can really count themselves quite unfortunate to kind of be on the fringes. Siriki Dembele, every time he's played, he's just got this energy, this real spark, and it looks like everyone around him just kind of comes to life. So I think he's been great. Jamal Lowe as well. I mean, played, scored. What more can you ask for, really? So my heart does go out to them. It's difficult. It really, really is. And obviously, likes of James Hill as well. Someone we need to see more of, and potentially Mike going forward. But yeah, I think it's probably fair not to judge most of them, to be honest, because, like I say, minutes have been limited this season.
Yeah, Jamal Lowe in the Cup did run his socks off, Jon, didn't he? And Junior Stanislas has had those little glimpses, but he's not really had a full run out. But we know what class he's got in the bank, and maybe that will be shown in the second half of the season. But those players that are not going to get a mention, want a little mention for them, for those little minutes they've had in the Cup?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose James Hill's the unfortunate one who hasn't played. Did he get minutes in the first Cup game of the season? I can't remember. He may well have done, but yeah, he obviously didn't feature against, certainly off the start against Everton. Yeah, it's been a little disappointing not to see Joe Rothwell. Certainly, Junior Stanislas is a player that we know has maybe even the best talent of all the players in the squad as we currently have, but just his injuries is just a significant issue. So all of them are players that can contribute. And I think the thing that we've worried about in the past is, particularly under Eddie, he loved to basically change 11 players whenever we went into a cup game, and that could give literally anything. We could go out to anyone on previous seasons, but going up against a changed Everton, but still an Everton with a lot of Premier League players in it, for us to dominate the way that we did, just showed there is more depth in this squad than I originally gave him credit for, and clearly O'Neill is able to at least keep the levels of those bench and reserve players up to a very good standard. And I mean, Emi Marcondes is just the cup personified at this point, so we don't need to worry about his performances there. But yeah, I'm hoping to see more of these players going forward, and you know, new person coming in, whoever it might be, may well see some changes. But yeah, was pleased to see them get the minutes.
But here we go then. We're going to dive into the main squad, the players that have played the most minutes in the Premier League and had an impact. And we'll see how they're going to get on in this tier list now. So what we're going to do, guys, then is we're going to work through the team. I'm going to pick some players for you. You'll get about a minute and a half to tell us how you think they're doing up to 15 Premier League games. Then I want to know whether you're going to stick with where they are, whether you're going to twist. And if you're going to twist, it's either upgrading them to a higher tier or potentially downgrading them to a lower tier. Nervous times if you're going to go down that road. And Dan, I'm going to come to you first. And it's surely got to be an upgrade because he's got to come out not fair to judge, and that is Mark Travers, who did get back in the side after Neto had an injury, and he finished the season so far with a clean sheet against Everton. Talk to us about Mark Travers and where he's going to go.
So I do feel quite bad for Mark Travers because I've been quite critical of him this season. I think actually a lot of people are kind of pointing blame at him for goals that aren't his fault whatsoever. I think you can maybe count on a couple of fingers the amount of goals this season that you can maybe say, oh, we should have done better there. So I do feel like it's not easy for him. The fixtures that he started the season with were horrific, and the Anfield game, as much as we want to try and forget about that, it was a strange one. It was a one-off. And then obviously Neto getting injured, he comes back into the side, looked quite shaky again, I will say. Shot stopping, not really a lot of it, to be honest. Distribution, quite shaky. Didn't really command his penalty area. And I do feel bad for him because Neto came in and made such a good impact, and obviously we'll touch on him later, that Travers coming in kind of had an impossible job to, come between the sticks and step up just like Neto has. So there's kind of elements that have gone against him. But I don't think we can say that he's been steady. I do feel like he has underperformed this season. I think he'd be the first to say that. I was as pleased as anyone for him to get the clean sheet against Everton. He wasn't really tested in that game, to be honest, but there was a bit more composure from him, which was good to see. I kept a close eye on him in that game, but just from what we've seen before, I think as an overall package, he's definitely dropped below the high standards he set himself last season.
It's an upgrade though, Mark Travers, and you're 4 years off peak career. So there's going to be ups and downs, and a lot of us do believe in you, and I'm sure Dan does as well. But you've gone into underperforming, but one up from where you were earlier on. Jon, coming to you now, and you've got a right back who played left back for one game, and that's Ryan Fredericks.
Yeah, Ryan Fredericks. It's an interesting one because he was brought in as this experienced Premier League player, and he was obviously very clearly a Parker man. And it's very apparent that right wing back is his position. I really don't think that he's necessarily capable of playing right back in a back four. I think he's too defensively suspect for that. But at the same time, as a wing back, I expect to see more from him going forward. In his first appearance for us, he put in a couple of really nice crosses, but I've really been very underwhelmed by Fredericks. I was called out as being maybe a little bit harsh on saying that he was Adam Smith has historically been incredibly quick to go down, shall we say, under very light touches, and Ryan Fredericks has so far was called out for a dive and got a yellow card in his first start for us, I believe. And then not long after that, I think the next game he dived, he got very light contact, and I feel he went down way too easily again. And I was like, oh God, we've already got one diver in Adam Smith. I don't need another one at right back. But since then, his performances haven't been good enough for me. I think I expect more from someone who's an experienced campaigner, who does have the pace to get up and down very comfortably. He hasn't provided any assists. He doesn't look like he's going to. I would say he's underperforming at the moment, and his defensive numbers are pretty bad. So, I think at the moment I really have to say underperforming for Ryan Fredericks.
I would say that I expected a little bit more, but it's a free transfer, so I take that into it. But yeah, I've not been completely convinced. I've not been completely disappointed, but I was looking for a little bit more. But then again, I don't want two right-footed fullbacks, so I think I'm always going to be a little bit anxious about it. So again, you've been upgraded, obviously, Fredericks, but only by one, into underperforming. And I've got another right-back, which is Jack Stacey, who I've always had a lot of time for Jack Stacey. I think there is something in that player. I think he's very quick going forwards. That's a player that Adam Smith used to be. Jack Stacey has always been questioned defensively. He's had mistakes in him in the past, but I definitely think he's an asset. I think he's a very good squad player. He's had a start against Manchester City. He's come off the bench when we've tried to see out football matches. And again, guys, I think I'm going to have to sort of lean towards where you are. I think there could be a question about whether he could be steady, but I feel like I just want to judge him similar to you guys for Travers and Fredericks into underperforming. And that's where I think I'm going to put him into underperforming for Jack Stacey.
I would just say that I don't feel strong enough about this to disagree with you and put him in steady, but I would say that he has had very few minutes. And I think his stats actually don't show up too badly, really. But yeah, okay. I mean, you look at where he's played, when he's come on, he's not really been able to have much of an impact. So I don't know. There's a debate as to whether he could be steady, but I don't disagree with you enough to want to put him there.
Yeah, I don't feel like I want to waste too much more time in it, but I think, again, that point is absolutely valid. So if you put Jack Stacey in your own comments, you could put him into steady. I think you're absolutely justified. He's going into underperforming for me, but I do like Jack Stacey a lot. Dan, coming back to you, and you've got an interesting player who we probably shouldn't judge because we're not judging many players, but that is Jack Stevens, a player that's come from Southampton on loan. That's automatically a challenge, bearing in mind that he's probably not favoured up there. And he had a very good game in the cup, but then backed it up with that contribution in a clean sheet on the final game before the World Cup against Everton. And I feel like we should judge him because of that 90 minutes.
I have to say, I'm not particularly surprised at how well he did actually play in both those games. It's clear from the start he's always been a very solid defender. He knows exactly what his strengths and his weaknesses are. Not the quickest, but I think he's quite nice and composed on the ball. He'll go and clatter anyone. He'll go and put his head on anything if he needs to. So I think that's great. He's quite rugged. I see sort of glimpses of quite an old-fashioned kind of centre-half, just gets the job done, no messing around. I think that's, to be honest, just in terms of squad depth, is exactly what Bournemouth have needed this season, to be honest. So, yeah, like you say, difficult start coming from Southampton, where he did fall out of favour, and with good reason, I think. But I have to say, I've been quite impressed. I really have. I think he's obviously come on in other games as well to try and shore up the defence. And from what I've seen in those glimpses in his starts, I think he's been good, to be honest. So I'd put him in steady, definitely. I think he deserves that. And hopefully we see some more of him this season as well.
Two-tier jump for Jack Stevens, straight into steady. But after his performance against Everton, definitely going to be a very good squad player for us after the World Cup, when games will come quick and fast. And we'll continue with that for Jack Stacey. Jack Stevens into steady. So let's move up the grid then, John, and let's go for Neto, who is currently in steady, and he came into the team after Mark Travers was left out after that Anfield day, and he didn't look back from then until he got injured.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was a graph that's gone around Twitter a bit today, I believe, that has shown him to basically been arguably the second best keeper in the league, but certainly in terms of he's the second best shot stopper. And the thing that I was really impressed about when he wasn't really being asked to do much goalkeeping was his distribution, which initially I think has slightly dropped off as the games went on. I think at the start his mid-range passing in particular was impeccable, but yeah, he just looks clearly very comfortable on his feet. And I mean, that's not really a surprise. He played for Juventus and Barcelona. So you've got to be pretty decent with your feet as a goalkeeper if you're even going to get on their bench. So yeah, as I think most people have been very impressed with Neto as he's gone on. And I would certainly be upgrading him from steady to very good. I think he's definitely been one of the, a player that has impressed and has been very good for us with his displays. Unfortunate that he's got injured. He'll be back, I'm sure, after the World Cup. But it'll be an interesting one as to see who starts on the first Premier League game back, I have to say.
Twisting Neto up, upgrading him to very, very good. Got to take this opportunity. Dan, do we have any updates on Neto's injury? Is it long term, or are we okay?
I'm not actually sure, to be honest. The last time we checked, we heard that they're hopefully be back after World Cup break. I'd fully expect that, to be honest. There's obviously initially a bit of precaution, but I'd fully expect to see him back after the World Cup break. But that's something we'll have to follow up with whoever the new manager is, obviously.
We'll be watching. We'll be watching your Twitter feed. Don't you worry about that. But I've got to take these opportunities just in case there's an update. Next player on the list is vice captain, who's been captain of late, and that is Adam Smith, who I think has played every single game. He's played right back, he's played left back, he's played centre back in a 3. He's been solid. He's not the marauding fullback that we're used to seeing in previous years. But look, he's getting to a different age now, Adam Smith. But he's shown leadership. I think he showed everything he normally does, wearing the badge on his heart. And he's currently in steady, isn't he? And I feel like I want to maybe upgrade him potentially to very good, just because I think he's taken on the baton of the captain's armband. I'm sure there's stats out there, John, that's going to tell me he's not actually been that great defensively. But I think he has been asked to play a few roles, and that's not easy because you can't settle that easy. Although he's a journeyman now, that's difficult. And I feel like I want to upgrade him because he's been asked to do a job outside of his natural job.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I've pointed out before that Adam Smith has been our worst defender in terms of dealing with dribblers. But I think you're absolutely right. He's been asked to play left back. And even left back, he's basically a centre back now. Like he's ostensibly played as a centre back, and I think that is getting more out of him than when he was asked to play a bit more aggressively as a right back in the last couple of seasons. And although I think that it's easy to look from a statistical point of view that I'd probably keep him in steady, I think that in terms of the eye test, in terms of what he's been asked to do, I think the fact that he works well in different positions. He's adaptable, and he's even got a very good assist. I wouldn't be against moving him up to very good.
I'm gonna put him there. I think I'm gonna put him there, Dan. Unless you want to change anything on that.
I don't think you can ask any more of him from what we've seen this season. To be honest, playing the amount of roles that he has in every single game, you know exactly what you're going to get from him. Standards don't drop. He's a real leader. I think very good. Fair enough.
I think I do. Just for those reasons, outside of stats, I think I want to push him up. And I'm going to push him up. He's being upgraded. And the next player is an interesting one for you, Dan. This is the Argentinian Senesi, however you want to say it, and someone who very much struggled on his full debut against Arsenal, where Jesus bundled him out the way to help Arsenal score their first goal. But he's really grew into the AFC Bournemouth team as Lloyd Kelly came out with injury. And this is an interesting one for you, Dan.
It is, yeah. I mean, I think he's built a superb partnership with Chris Mepham. I really do. Like you say, it was a difficult start. I have to admit, I saw him against Arsenal, and it wasn't just the Jesus incident. He was getting spun by a lot of players who would just kind of park themselves on him. And you think, right, we've heard about his physicality, we've seen it. And then he would just get battered off the ball and fall a little bit, and you're like, oh no, what's going on here? There were some real early wobbles. I think that did initially raise alarm bells. Thankfully, he's really grown into the shirt. I think he's now a real fan's favourite, to be honest. I think brilliant with the ball. Excellent. Playing through the thirds and trying to be a bit more progressive rather than just, hoof it long down the flank or whatever. So I've been impressed with that side of the game, but also, again, interceptions, tackles, headers. He's kind of an all-round package. So, but I think if I was to judge him on his kind of purple patch, you say, yeah, he's very good. But then I think because of the way he started, and I still see the occasional glimpse of what we saw at the start of the season, just a little bit of a glimpse, like, hang on, don't slip back. If there was a tier between very good and steady, that's where he'd be, just his own Senesi tier. But if I had to take a punt now, I think I'd probably keep him in steady, to be honest.
Stick.
Just because last game
a difficult
aside,
one. We said this before, John. There should have been another tier, shouldn't there?
Yeah, we did actually. Yeah, and I would say I agree with Dan as well. I think that he still has that tendency to wander out of defence, which he's got from when he was with Eindhoven. Was it PSV Eindhoven, or am I thinking of the wrong team? Is Feyenoord, that was it. Feyenoord, who were a much more expressive, expansive team, and he was able to just take the ball out of defence. And I think he's still kind of got that tendency. And once or twice I've seen him just walk out of the centre-back four, and I've gone, where are you going? If we lose the ball, we're screwed. And we've got away with it every time. So, yeah, his defensive numbers are outstanding. He's in the 97th percentile for clearances in Europe's top 5 leagues. But his passing is not quite where I would hope it would be as well. So I'm happy for it to stay steady.
Controversial. It's getting controversial already, but Senesi is going to stay in steady. But don't be downbeat, Senesi. You've done really well to improve from that opening start. Next player is Ben Pearson, John, who is in steady, and he started on the opening day, and he should have come on when we were 3-1 up against Leeds, I think, but he didn't. But Ben Pearson for you.
I think there's not really too much to say, to be honest. He's barely featured since that international break, since the first 4 games of the season, was it? I think he was playing when Parker was in situ, and obviously he played against Everton in the cup, and I'm sure, performed admirably. But I mean, there's really not much to change about him. He's not played enough for me to really comment too much on him. And I do hope that he gets a bit more of an opportunity in the kind of games like you mentioned, Leeds against Tottenham, when we are in a strong position where you just think, let's shore things up a bit more. Let's bring on a disruptor like Pearson. But yeah, there's nothing that he can do about that other than keep trying and training. And certainly a very steady player for Bournemouth.
So Ben Pearson's going to stay where he is in steady. And I've got another good player who was in the England under-20s. It's Lewis Cook, who was massive in our promotion at the end of the season. And he's been a constant player in this team from the start of the season. Again, I think Lewis Cook's probably played every game. I think I'm confident in saying that. Maybe not started every game, but he's definitely been a part of every game. Lewis Cook, I like him. I like him a lot. I think he's done well to come back from that really poor injury, a second injury for him. 2 assists, I think he's got, and I think he got the assist for that Everton goal for. I think I'm right in thinking he got assists. Yeah. Anthony. I mean, he's currently in steady, guys, but I feel like I want a little bit more still. I mean, I know he breaks down the play. I know he starts to play. He does all that effort. He shouldn't have got sent off against Everton. I thought I'm just going to clarify that. It's a 50-50 challenge. But I want a bit more in goals, I suppose. I know he doesn't really play the role, but he's taking free kicks for us now. I'm not sure why. I mean, I know he doesn't. His previous seasons doesn't tell us he should be scoring lots of goals. But I just think, could he add goals to his game, Dan? I'm going to come to you to add to that. Do you agree or not?
Yeah, I think so. I think keeping him steady is fair enough. I'm left with the same kind of feeling as you, where you look at him and you think he's an all-round package. He's such a tidy footballer. But then there are elements of his game missing that you would maybe want to see. So like you say, more goals, more assists, a bit more contributions in the final third. I do think the way he's been fielded this season has obviously changed that. You don't really see him busting the gut and charging through the middle anymore. So there's been changes on that front, which I think obviously affect the end product. But yeah, I do want to see a little bit more. I think he's been great this season, but I would definitely class him as steady more than anything above.
Yeah, I'm going to keep you there, Lewis. But John just wants to make one more point on Lewis Cook.
Yeah, I would just say he has become our biggest creator of the so far, sort of almost out of nowhere compared to what he was doing last season. And I would say that he has actually kind of been impressively tactically flexible, I think, this season, Lewis Cook, when I consider the kind of positions he took up as like most prevalently in the second half against Forest, when he was kind of the right side of a diamond 4 in midfield. He's shown himself to be so capable at this level. Yes, he definitely can produce more, but I mean, I wouldn't say he's been very good, but I have been impressed with aspects of his game. But there's certainly still things that he can improve on.
So we're going to keep Lewis Cook in steady. And the next player who could be in danger for Dan is the Flying Scotsman, Ryan Christie. 13 games, 9 starts, 1 goal, no assists. He's got to be in danger, isn't he, Dan?
Yeah, it feels like I'm the one that's putting all the players down, to be honest. Yeah, he is. I said the same with my grades for the season so far. Again, I'm kind of left wanting that end product. I don't think we're seeing it enough. There's a lot to his game, don't get me wrong. A lot of energy. I think tactically he's very good. Drifts a lot in essential areas, which is nice. Makes for a lot of decent combinations down that side. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you're playing on the wing, your one job is to get at least assists or goals or get a few crosses in the box that, are inviting. And I'm just not seeing enough on that front really from him this season so far. I was pleased for him when he got the goal. But yeah, I'm left with a sense of, I think there's more to come. I really do. So for the second time from me, and I do apologise, Ryan, down to underperforming, I don't think that's being too critical.
And I think Ryan Christie is a good squad player, and I do want him in the squad. But I'm not going to disagree with that. I think I let him off last time, and I'm going to go with it. I think I put him in underperforming as well. I think there's way more that he could deliver from an output point of view. And Ryan Christie, unfortunately, at this stage, you've got the next second half of the season, turn it around, but you are downgraded at this point. John, an interesting one coming your way now. And I tell you what, he left it late, but he's right on the money now, and that's Marcus Tavernier. He came good. We talked about him previously before the international break about having all the effort and the versatility, but we paid 10.5 to 12 million for someone who's going to give us goals and assists. He's turned up now, 2 goals, 4 assists.
Yeah, in 2.5 games. And that's the thing that, okay, yes, now he's in a purple patch and the World Cup has come at the worst possible time for him. But that has taken him from an underperforming season into now you're actually doing what we want you to do. I certainly don't. If you're basing the season off the last 3 games, he's world class. But unfortunately, we're not. We're basing it off the first 15, and from that point, he's steady. He's gone from underperforming, if we'd done this 3 days ago, to now being, actually producing the final bits of play that we want him to. I would say that he has done so well for us in terms of doing a very hard job, playing at left wing back or right wing back, basically playing on the side of Adam Smith every time to allow us to play in sort of a hybrid 5-4 defence. And he's got to run up and down that pitch for 90 minutes. And it's such a hard job that he's the only one in the team that does, that we rely on him. Gary O'Neill massively relied on him for his tactical, for his stamina, tactically playing at wing back. But in terms of the final products that we're looking for from him, he's now starting to produce that. In the same way that Ryan Christie is underperforming, Tavernier has taken himself from that point back up to steady, I think. So for now, I think that's where he should be. But if he keeps this going after the World Cup, yeah, obviously we'll be looking at taking him beyond that into very good.
I ain't going to move him yet. You're going to keep him in steady. You're going to keep him instead. Dan, this is a fan favourite now, isn't it? Because this is a player that absolutely runs around for 90 minutes, giving their all. And now he's adding numbers. I mean, he keeps this up. He is a fan's favourite. We'll be selling more shirts, surely.
You'd like to think so. I mean, last 3 games I've been really, really impressed with him. And it's good to finally see that end product, because there's been the promise of it for a lot of the season, but it hasn't been there. And that has led to a lot of frustration. He'd kind of... that final decision, that cross into the box or that final pass.
Corners.
Yeah, corners. Don't get me started on corners. It was really, really off. And that did lead to a sense of frustration. And I was lucky enough to speak to him with some other journalists earlier this season. And we asked him, we said, do you feel like that first goal or assist is far away? And he said, no, I think it's close. I think it's close. But again, it took a few more weeks after that for everything to click. And like you say, the breaks now come at a time where it's halted that momentum. So it'd be interesting to see if he can hit the ground running when we come back. But I do think, like you say, he's in a purple patch, but from what we've seen before, I think it balances out. So I definitely put him in steady for now, but evidently there's a lot of potential there. And I do have to say, his work rate is exceptional. It really, really is. Like you say, up and down for 90 minutes. His energy levels are ridiculous. So, yeah, a lot of promise there.
I think you're going to take a hit for this, John, in the comments. I'm going to give you one more chance. Is it steady or is he upgraded?
He's steady.
He's steady.
For now,
Okay.
for now, he is steady. He has shown brilliance over there. And anyway, Kirk, you're the last person I want to hear talking about this. You were slamming him after the first 12 games.
Absolutely was. But he's delivering. That's what I asked for.
True.
That's fine. Let John know in the comments. Next player on the list, let's start rattling through them again, is Jayden Anthony, a player we need to get a contract signed and delivered very, very soon. A player that's had an impact in both the Premier League and the Cup. He scored the winner against Nottingham Forest. He's done well when he's come on. I'm not sure he's had many starts. I think he's only had the one. I don't think I can push the boat out and stick him into very good. I think the potential's there. I'd like to keep him at the club. I don't want to lose him for nothing. But I'm going to keep Jayden Anthony instead. He absolutely loved the player. I think he's a fan's favourite as well. He very much connects with the fans with his celebrations. But yeah, I just don't think I can upgrade him to very good yet. Dan, I've moved things around for you a little bit so we can get some really good ones going for you. And the next one, he's going to the World Cup, he is. And he's cool he's calm. He's cool, calm and collected. And he's got ice running through his veins. It's Kiefer Moore.
I think he's been brilliant this season when he's played. He again, he's just a throwback striker, and every defender you field him against looks like they have no idea how to handle him. Like he's not just height; he's a lot more delicate than that. And I think people that don't necessarily watch him week in week out, they see him, they're like, "Oh, here we go, crashing headers and stuff." He's actually a lot more than that. He contributes in the build-up. He's really, really intelligent on and off the ball. I love watching him. I think his partnership with Dom in the channels has been especially important this season. So, yeah, I mean, all-rounder really. And, I mean, the second goal against Everton says it all. He put his head exactly where it hurt. But you knew he was going to be there and he was going to put the ball in the net. And, obviously, that's his main job. But, yeah, as an all-round package, I think he's exceptional. I really do.
We don't have that as a tier list.
Yeah, I know. What? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he's been absolute class because there have been a lot of players around him that have also kind of taken the headlines. So I definitely move him into very good, I think, rather than steady. I think you know exactly what you're going to get with Kiefer Moore, definitely. And I think because of, like I say, what he contributes to an all-round team performance is a lot more important than like his raw goal stats, for example. Not that he's not scoring, because of course he is.
40% conversion in front of goal as well, which is absolutely amazing. The only question mark I put against him is I'm surprised he hasn't got an assist yet for the type of player he is.
Yeah.
I do look at him as like an old-fashioned striker where he almost needs a Jermaine Defoe to play off him. But I am surprised the amount of link up and the way we try and hit the ball to him to hold it up for us and link play, that he hasn't got any assists yet. But I'm sure that will come. But 40% conversion, he's upgraded. 100%, very good. You're in there, Kiefer Moore. Moving to you, John, and the next player on the list. He's not very good at defending, mind, but we need to get this player signed up as well. And that's Jon Zamora.
Oh, really? Not very good at defending. I think
apparently not.
You're setting me up for something here, as I've already tweeted about that about 3 different times so far. I think Jon Zamora has been. He's been very unlucky to not feature more. I think, and I think that has come from Gary Neal's seeming sort of like not wanting to change what's working approach in terms of the back line. When Adam Smith came in against Leicester, doing a sort of semi-man marking job on Maddison, it worked out really well in that game. In terms of Adam Smith's role, did very, very well, and then it sort of like just stuck with that, and nothing changed. And as I was saying, as unimpressed as I have been with Ryan Fredericks, you swap that around and just look how much Jon Zamora does going forward. Look how much of an impact he has, just causing havoc with his dribbling. I mean, God, he went through about 4 players in one dribble against Everton. And then people say, but, he can't defend, can he? And then you look, well, actually, he's got better defensive numbers than Adam Smith and Ryan Fredericks, and I think better than Jack Stacey in terms of fullbacks. So he has been unfortunate to not play more. And I think he's been unfortunate not to get not to get just more than just the one assist as well, with possible penalty shouts from tackles on him as well. So the difficult thing is that obviously we rated him very good in that period where he was actually playing a lot, and he's really not played since that international break. He comes in against Everton and does really well. That would be a knock to possibly push him down because of his lack of game time. But I think that when
by the way,
no, I think when he has played, he's been very good, and I think that's reason enough to keep him in that little strata group. There's the word I'm looking for. But I just want to see more of him. I'm just such a big fan of it, and I would love to see him and Anthony playing together on that left-hand side again, which they might do under a different manager. It doesn't really work in O'Neill's system, but I'm still such a huge fan of Zamora, and God, does he need that contract signed as soon as possible.
I got your back, Jay-Z. You're not going anywhere. You're staying in very, very good. You are sticking there. Right, next one, Jefferson Lerma for me, our Colombian. What a guy. Absolutely love this guy. Can't believe every season we have Jefferson Lerma. He's still at the club. He loves the club as much as we love him. And do you know what, guys? Again, he's been a consistent player for us. He's an engine. I think he's got 2 goals. And I think he started off the tier list in that international break and very good. I'm going to upgrade him because do you know why I'm going to upgrade him? He's only had 3 yellow cards and we've not yet had a suspension out of him. For that reason alone, that for me is showing me that Jefferson Lerma cares so much for the club that he realises he needs to be available for as many minutes as possible for us to stay up. And I'm upgrading him. He's going straight into absolute class for me.
That's definite bias there from Kirk, I think. But
that choice might be wearing your heart on your sleeve, but I'm going for it.
To be fair, he scored goals as well. He's is it 2 or 3?
2.
2. Yeah, and every minute of every game so far in the league, and that is impressive. He's the only player we've got that's done that. I don't have any issues with that.
It's done anyway. I've moved him up. He's straight to absolute class. Next player on the list, I tell you what, he wants to join Jefferson Lerma. Has he done it? Dan, Philip Billing. He's added goals. He was our top goal scorer at one point. Probably still is, maybe. I have to double check that. But Philip Billing isn't going to the World Cup. That's a shock. But where does he end up in the tier list? He's currently in very good.
He's really unfortunate to miss out on that place in the Denmark squad, by the way. I think, honestly, he's been brilliant this season. I don't quite understand why he's such a divisive figure in that squad, to be honest. I think a lot of people think, he doesn't maybe run as hard, or he looks just a bit ponderous, or, a bit lazy. None of that is true.
You've been listening to me, Dan?
At all? No, not at all. I mean, it's just not a general consensus, but yeah, I've seen that more than I thought I would this season. I get why people get that impression, but I think if you just keep an eye on him off the ball for 90 minutes, he's just incredibly intelligent. I think his decision-making is good. I think what he does going forward is really important, especially to how Gary O'Neill and his system work. I think kind of in that inside left channel. I don't think that particularly suits him, to be honest. That's not where I want to see him, but he does a job there, to be honest. So I think you have to hold your hand up and say fair play. In terms of goals, I mean, he hasn't really scored a normal goal this season. Every single goal he scored in some way has been absolutely sublime. His technique hitting the ball is brilliant. And again, as kind of like a late runner into the box for crosses and set pieces, he can contribute on that front as well. So it sounds like I'm building him up to be absolute class. I think I'm going to keep him in very good. But I have been really impressed with him this season. And like you say, a top goal scorer as well. Deserves, I think, a lot more praise than he probably gets. I think he's quite misunderstood, potentially.
31% conversion in front of goal as well. And I think maybe if he had more assists, I reckon he'd have got into absolute class, but it's only the one. And maybe that's where he stays and the reason he stays. But yeah, I would tend to agree with that. So Philip Billing is staying in very good. Next player, John, is someone who's definitely justifying that he can play in the Premier League, and that is Dom Solanke. But there's more to his game than just goals. But he has added 3 goals, 12% conversion rate and 3 assists. He's currently in very good. Where are you going with Dom Solanke? Yeah,
it's an interesting one. I mean, 3 goals and 3 assists now, which means he's tied with Tavernier as our highest goal involvement player. He just does so much for the team. His work rate is ridiculous. His pressing, he's very intelligent with his pressing. He works so well with others. At times, I've been a little bit frustrated at his hold-up play, but I think he's improved that again. It's difficult to say what he doesn't do. I mean, didn't I say to you, Kirk, is that literally if you asked him to play centre back, he'd do a really good job. Or if he easily play like anywhere else amongst along sort of the front four, and has done for us. The thing I'm really not sure whether to shift him up or not, because I feel as though he's got so much there. He's got so much promise. He's fulfilling so much of his potential. But you just look at the fact he's only got 3 goals, and you just think there's definitely more. We could have reached this season. We could have reached this point in the season with him having more goals. But I think it's the fact that he's played such a creative role that has also been very, very impressive. And if you take him as an out-and-out goal scorer, you'd probably just keep him in very good. But I think because of everything that he does for the team, I'd argue I'd probably have to shift him in. I think if Jefferson Lerma's getting shifted to absolute class, I think Dom Solanke absolutely needs to get shifted to absolute class.
Interestingly, I think if he played the number 9 role all season up to this point and only had 3 goals, I think he sticks where he is. But I think you make a good point that he started the opening day on the left. He's played as a number 10 behind Kiefer Moore of late, and he's doing more of a team job this season, and he's still added goals and assists. And I think that's how we can justify shifting him up.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that. And I mean, I think, Dan, you've put out pieces about Solanke's creative being sort of the creative force for Bournemouth at times this season for significant periods of this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been so impressed with what I've seen from him. He kind of is in that hybrid role between kind of potentially the main playmaker and also the one that you want in the box, getting on the end of chances. And I think that's a line he walks very, very well, to be honest. And like you say, stick him anyway, he'll do a job. And to be honest, he pops up in the most unusual positions, and he's just relentless at tracking back, helping out his teammates, supporting. And then when there's a turnover, boom, he's off, and he's in exactly where you want him to be. I just feel like, yeah, he's such an important player. I mean, O'Neill, after the draw at Fulham, basically said the whole team press in that game was designed to release Dom down the channel to get him in behind. And I think that just says everything about what a crucial role he's got. And he just looks just like a really mature front man, to be honest. He really does. I think there's definitely a lot. I want to see a bit more goals from him, but I think that maybe that's being overly harsh. I think that there's obviously more to come. I'm seeing a lot of, acrobatic finishes or little flicks, which is great. But sometimes I just want a ball to be fired across from him, 6 yards out, tap in, job done. I think I want to see a little bit more of that. But I do kind of feel like that's kind of a team issue rather than just Dom's lack of movement, to be honest. So yeah, plenty more to come from him. But I think he's been superb this season.
Yeah, he's more likely to be the one that plays that ball across.
But I want him to be on the end of it. That's exactly. Kind of the thing is, he's as cool as ice as well, just like Kiefer. You think, get him in the right places, he'll put the ball in. Because of how versatile he is, he can pop up anywhere and do a job.
Bow and arrow. He's going up. He's upgraded to absolute class. I'm going to take the next one then, which is our current club captain, Lloyd Kelly, who's likely to be linked away in every transfer window. Had a fantastic start. Felt very comfortable. I say had a fantastic start. He was in that hit where we conceded 16 goals over 3 games or whatever it was. But I still think, as a captain, how he sort of took us into the Aston Villa game, and look, we turned it around against Nottingham Forest. I know he was to blame for the penalty, but he hasn't played much since, and I feel like I can't keep him at the top, and that's not a detriment to him really, but just the fact that he's not been there, and these players that are at absolute class have been there for 15 games, if not nearly all of them, and Lloyd has got a big part to play in this season. I'm going to put him down to very good based on the captain he's been. He's been to the games as well because I've seen him there. He's getting behind the team. I'm sure he's speaking to the players during the week and he's being a leader, but he's being downgraded, but not in a negative way, hopefully. Right. Don't see any pushbacks on that. So I'm going to move on to the last player. And you're fortunate again, Dan, I think, with another player going to the World Cup who has definitely proved a lot of Bournemouth fans wrong. And that's Mr. Chris Mepham. Ultimately, potentially been our best player so far this season. Chris Mepham's in absolute class. Does he stay in absolute class?
100%, 1,000,000%. Yeah. He has been absolutely superb this season. He really, really has. I must admit, I think I was surprised to see how composed he was right from the very off. And I think quite a lot of fans were as well. He's just a massive transformation. Every single game, he looks so composed. And he's not really put a foot wrong at all. Like, I can't really say one incident where you're like, oh, Chris, that's really, really poor. You just honestly, every single game, you know exactly what you're going to get. And he's just stepped up. And to be honest, from the manner of which he was being criticised, and quite rightly so, for some of his performances in the Bournemouth shirt, you think, you know, are there question marks potentially over his future? But honestly, you can't take my side. And it's actually quite interesting. When Lloyd Kelly comes back, you think, oh, it will drop straight into the team, but will he? Obviously, it depends on the shape. But I don't know, because I think a big part of how good Chris Mepham has been is I think he complements Marcos Senesi quite well, and vice versa. I really do. But honestly, yeah, I think head and shoulders this season, Chris Mepham's been Bournemouth's best player. And I think I'm really pleased for him. I think every fan will be as well, because he's really, really turned it around. And not just a little bit, like he's made gigantic strides to become a really, really, really solid Premier League defender. So yeah, fair play to him.
And I know you're delighted, John, because he's made 86 clearances this season, and that's helped him be one of our best players.
Yep, top 1% the clearance makers for centre-backs in top 5 leagues. It does help that he's playing in such a deep side that it really is just playing head tennis at times. But I do think that it's something I mentioned in terms of if Bielsa came in, is that the style that we're currently playing in a very defensive system, very much plays off the counter-attack, encourages the play to go wide and balls to come in as crosses that he can deal with comfortably. Because he's been completely had any attacking responsibility taken off him, he's not asked to play the ball forward in the same way. Most of his passes are long, or they're sideways and backwards. And when under Eddie, even though he's brought in as more of a ball-playing centre-back, that's where he was making his mistakes, and also being caught out either on the ball or with balls going over beyond him because he's not the fastest. Because all of that pressure has been taking off him, he can just play as a centre-back, and he is a really, really good centre-back. And he's showing that, and I'm so delighted for him. And that's one of the things that I'm thinking, if it's a Bielsa or if it's a manager that's going to come in and really want to push us up the pitch, I worry about what that's going to have on impact that's going to have on Mepham's game. For now, he's been, as I totally agree with Dan, I would say he's been Bournemouth's best player. He just needs to cut down on those yellow cards. But other than that, he's been outstanding.
Safe as ours is Chris Mepham, and that is locked in for our player ratings tier list so far up to the World Cup, and it's evened itself out a little bit now. We've had a few upgrades, a couple of downgrades as well, and that is what we think. But what do you think in the comments below? Do let us know if you agree, disagree, and any thoughts you have on the players. One thing we do know is in the bottom column, Scott Parker is still not right. There's still no players in there. They're still competitive. Dan, great to have you on this video. Any final thoughts? And I'm sure there'll be some stuff that we'll be doing in the next 7 weeks, leading back to when Premier League football returns.
Yeah, I mean, I miss it already. I really do. I'm happy to come on whenever you want me. I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, just final thoughts. I think it's just a general feel of, actually, you know what? Yeah, Scott Park was very wrong, to be honest. The squad is a lot more competitive than people give them credit. And still people aren't giving them credit for how they've done. I think, yeah, there have been some real poor performances and some blips, but I think overall you look at the fight, the resilience, how together that squad is and how talented it is ultimately. Like, obviously a lot will depend on who comes in as the next manager and how they push on after the World Cup break. But I think there's been a real solid foundation, to be honest, up to this point. And I think it's a good place to be. It really is. A lot of work to do, of course, and we'll be interested to see what happens. It's promising to be a very exciting future, obviously with takeover happenings and a new manager coming in potentially. So there's a lot going on, but I just think, reflecting back, I think it's been a real positive start to the season. I really do.
Jon, thanks for joining me on another video. We'll be doing more videos throughout this part of the season. We're doing okay though, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. We're not in the relegation zone. Southampton are still, I think, we're in a better position than I think basically everyone thought we would be, with more to come from this squad. I really do believe that with the takeover coming, with the training ground being completed, there's so many reasons to be positive. If he doesn't come back, a huge thank you to Gary O'Neill for really galvanizing this team and getting us into this position, ready for us to hopefully take off like a rocket. So we'll see what happens.
There will be more videos on that, definitely. Thank you for checking out this video, though. Do hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already to the channel. And, of course, thank you to our sponsors, Aquashine Exteriors, and our monthly members. You can become a monthly member or donate to the channel at buymeacoffee.com/Cherries Red Army. From this video, though, from me, Jon, and Dan, we'll see you on the next one. Up the cherries.